So this is a new module or a new chapter from your paper 1 only. Okay, so paper 1 actually after the first 3 chapters, then thinkers, then stratification. So 3, 4, 5. Now this is going to be our 6th chapter. Okay, so we have jumped to family before discussing this chapter. So here we will try to complete this. It's a very easy topic actually. Here the topics are like, I'll tell you the 3 topics here. The first topic is actually social organization of work. Okay, so the first topic, social organization of work in different societies. Okay, so here in the syllabus it is mentioned in slave society, in feudal society, and in capitalist society. Okay, so this is the first topic. So here you can get short note from here directly. This is how they used to ask question. Directly you will see social organization of work in slave society. Question number 1. Social organization of feudal society, social organization of work in feudal society, that is another question. Social organization of capitalist society or industrial society. Okay, mostly these two are intertwined. We will discuss about capitalism and industrialism. If there is any difference, we will try to take care of it. So this is how they will ask short notes. Sometimes they will ask you to compare social organization of work in slave society and in feudal society. So this comparison will also be asked, like slave and capitalist, feudal and capitalist, etc. But we have already done this in our discussion of Marx. So we clearly know what is social organization in feudal society, what is social organization in capitalist society, social organization in slave society. We have clearly discussed under the discussion of Marx. So there in this discussion we need to take up one by one, and we will see different aspects, like we will talk about alienation in different society. We will talk about social mobility. Okay, we have discussed all these social mobility in different society. We will talk about different classes in different society. We will also talk about what is power in different society. For example, when we talk about capitalist society, it is a capital which is more important. In feudal society, it is land which is more important. In slave society, it is a physical power which is more important, like sources of power. So this is the dimensions in which you need to take up this discussion. Very simple topic which we have already done. And apart from this, second topic is what is formal organization of work, formal and informal organization of work. So this is also a short note which can be asked. When we talk about formal organization of work, this is what you can see in mostly modern society. So this is because of rational organization of production. Okay, this bureaucracy, etc., the work and the work condition, everything is based on rules. Okay, so specified written rule based is formal organization. Informal means it is not rule based, it is like different social contract, etc. Okay, so this also we will get into. We will see the advantages of formal and advantages of informal, disadvantages in both cases we will have to discuss. Thirdly, the third topic, these are the 3 topics. Third topic is labor and society. Okay, labor and society. So how labor is actually integrated with society. Okay, so that is what we need to see in the third chapter. So here Marx have given a lot of discussion. So we have already know something about this particular topic, how labor is connected to society. It is a consciousness of man that does not decides his social existence. On the contrary, it is the social existence that decides his consciousness. Similarly, we know about this connection, how labor and society is connected. So these are the 3 topics, a very simple chapter. You will never get a long question from here. 3 possible short notes are what we have discussed. So directly 3 topics are there in the syllabus. First one, social organization of work. Okay, so this is going to be a short note, and specifically like a slave society, feudal society, capitalist society. So we need to prepare this. Each society, what is social organization in slave society, what in feudal society, what in capitalist society. So this is going to be a short note. From here, 3 different questions can be asked from this single topic. The comparison can also be asked like between these 2. Apart from this, the second topic is formal and informal. Okay, so this also can be a short note. Third one, labor. Labor and society. What is the connection? So here, in all these cases, anything related to work, anything related to labor, okay, you can basically write from the perspective of Marx. That we have completely done, but let's see how we are going to answer this question. So let's take up this and we will try to see these 3 short notes. Okay, I'll tell you how to answer this question. I'll give you the content here. I'll give you everything in bullet point and you need to write it from your side. Okay, so let's get started with this work and economic life. Work. So first I'll give you some definition, not that important, the first part. When you say work, so we'll start with work here. The conception of society is based on the interaction between people within a meaningful whole. So it's all about patterns of relationship between individuals. That's what you mean by society. And according to Marx, what is society? Mode of production. It comprises of economic infrastructure and social superstructure. That is also related to this only, an interaction between people. Okay, so various activities are performed in society which are relevance, which is having relevance in the wider social context. So any activity which is performed in the society by different individual have some relevance in the wider social context. In general, any activity performed is considered as work. So when we talk in general, any activity that you're doing, any activity is considered as work. But when it comes to sociology, work is something which is considered as necessarily paid. So paid employment is what we consider as work in our studies. In sociology, work is more confined view. In sociology of work, a more confined view of definition of work is taken. It is understood as any activity resulting in the paid employment, either directly or indirectly. Indirectly means it is not necessarily in cash. Directly means it will be cash. Indirectly means it can be anything. It can be in kind or anything. Judgmani system, when we have discussed, there is no such employment based on cash, right? So it was in kind only. For example, in traditional society, payment used to give generally indirect. And in modern society, payment is done in terms of wages and salaries. So this also we have discussed in paper 2, that in traditional society, especially in Judgmani system, it was obligatory relation. So when we discuss about obligatory relation, the payment is not necessarily in terms of cash. But in the modern society, it is based on contractual relation. So in modern society, it must be in terms of wages and salaries. Okay, a typical definition of workers. See, you are not going to write the definition of all this. These are not actually required for your syllabus. But still I have given you here. It is carrying out of task requiring the expenditure of mental and physical effort. See, the IT work, IT labor or IT employment, if you see, that is related to mental aspect, right? So we are incorporating both. It is not only the physical effort, the mental aspect can also be considered as work. So mental and physical effort, which has its objective. What is that? The production, distribution and consumption of goods and services that cater to human needs. So this is a typical definition of work, but you won't get any space or any typical question where you need to write the definition of work. Okay, even though only the chapter heading is work and economic life. So when we talk about social organization of work, if necessary, you can write this, but it is actually not required. It can be paid or unpaid. For example, when we talk about a woman as housewife, perform activity which falls in the definition of the work. Whatever we have discussed in the definition, that will specifically fit into. But the point is, that is not paid, right? But the personal activities are not considered within the purview of work. Personal activities like bathing, wearing dress, reading, etc. These are not considered as work. We know that. Even more confined understanding of work relate to activities involved in the production process. So this is actually the Marxian understanding of work that we have discussed. And this activities involved in the production process is what work according to Marx especially. And also this will create the class. Your position in the production process will result into the class also. In this context, work is taken as an activity which is necessarily paid. So if you're going with this definition, work is necessarily paid. Different books on sociology of work move with different assumptions. Okay, now what do you mean by worker? In general terms, any person who performs any work can be called as worker. But in sociology, the concept of worker has a very specific meaning. This concept emerged with the emergence of capitalist society. So we started this word worker along with capitalist society in Europe. And it is more prominent and more visible in the writings of Marx, the worker, capitalist, etc. The people who worked in factories, were called as workers. At the conceptual level, worker is understood as a person who enters into employment out of his own will, and he must be necessarily paid wages or salaries. He exercises his choice in terms of when to work, where to work, and on what terms and conditions, okay? And on what terms and conditions he should work. Even more specifically, the term worker is used for non-managerial, manual or non-manual work. So non-managerial level is where we call as worker. Beyond that, it is not worker, managers, like that it will be called. In this context, it pertains to lower level jobs. So when we use the word worker, we use it with the lower level jobs. For example, when working class movements are studied, this particular notion of worker is taken. So in sociology, whenever you're studying working class movement, we will not be considering the capitalist in this, right? They are at the top. We will not consider the supervisors, or we will not consider the managers, right? So we won't consider any of this group when we study the working class movement. Only the lower level jobs and those who are employed in lower level jobs is what we are studied when we study the working class movements. So that's about the worker. Now, what do you mean by industrial? What is the difference? These are basic understanding only. We are not yet reached to our particular chapter. Okay, so what is the difference between industrialism and capitalism? Are they same? Industrialism and capitalism. See, when we basically talk about capitalism and industrialism, we understand it both as same. But there can be a non-capitalist society also based on industrialism. For example, the concept given by Marx, socialism, is also based on industrialism. Communism is also based on industrialism. Capitalism is actually came along with industrialism. Industrialism means it is actually a method of production. How things are produced, it is based on, machines, factories, etc. Okay, that is what industrialization. Capitalism means it is an ideology. Okay, so it is just an ideology. What is that ideology? Accumulation of profit. So we have discussed about the ideal types of capitalism when we discussed about Weber, right? What are they? You are talking about profit, you are talking about money, okay, you are talking about time. So all these are the important aspects when we talk about capitalism. Most efficient producer. But when it comes to industrialism or industrialization, it is all related to use of machines, produce maximum, enhancing productivity, etc. So here enhancing productivity, here enhancing profitability. Both are intertwined. Why? Because automatically if you improve productivity, your profitability will also increase. So in that context, capitalism and industrialism is understood in the same way. But there can be a non-capitalist society also based on industrialism. For example, if you see China, Russia, etc., they are all industrial society, although they claim that they are not capitalist society. Okay, so that's the fundamental difference. Both are historically associated, but contextually different processes. Industrialism is understood as a specific technological process for mass production. So when we talk about industrialism, it's all about technological advantages for mass production of goods and services through rational organization of production. It refers to the factory system using machines and employing inanimate sources of energy. Okay? But when it comes to capitalism, it refers to an ideological framework. So industrialism is actually technological process. Capitalism is actually an ideological framework in the context of which the production takes place. It includes various features like private ownership, free market principle, profit motive, capital accumulation. These ideological elements refers to capitalism. In Europe, capitalism and industrialism were associated processes. Nowadays, capitalism has got a very broad connotation than industrialism. It has permeated through each and every aspect of social life. For example, agriculture is also capitalist nowadays. Okay, in the case of socialism, although industrialism is used, but the ideological framework governing is different. I hope you understood this point. If you understood this point, then the difference is clear. See, in the context of socialism also, industries are there. When industries are there, when machines are there, when inanimate sources are used to produce, then it is industrialism. So in socialism also, industrialism is there, but what is different? Ideological framework is different. These ideologies are not there. Profit motive, capital accumulation is not there. It is for the well-being of all the people. Socialism includes public ownership, collective benefits, centralized market, etc. Okay, so although it is not there in the syllabus, before it was asked, so that's why I have briefly discussed here. Maybe it can ask as a short note, so just have an idea. Okay, now this is the actual topic. That syllabus is social organization of work in different types of society. So what you need to do is, you need to have a very good idea about what is slave society, capitalist society, feudal society, industrial society, and we have done this in detail in Marx. Exactly the same thing is what I am going to discuss here. So let's proceed. Organization of work differs in different societies and is generally understood as an evolutionary process. So this evolutionary model is what we have seen in Marxian theory of mode of production. Okay, it is understood not only in terms of process of production, but also in terms of social aspects. What are the various social aspects we have discussed? We have discussed about, who is powerful, who is powerless, right? How the wealth is distributed, right? What was the source of alienation, right? So everything we have discussed in Marxian understanding. Exactly the same thing is what you need to do here also. Thus, social organization of work will include various dimensions like power distribution, stratification, role distribution, social mobility, degree of alienation, apart from the nature of activities and the organization of production. So only thing that you need to remember here is, if the question is asked, these are the points that you need to write. I'm sure every society, you know what is power, who is holding power, what is the different stratification. For example, ancient society, slaves and masters. Feudal society, serfs and lords. Capitalist society, workers and capitalist. Okay, role distribution, social mobility, it is very less, right? It is very less in this society and this society, but more in capitalist or industrial society. Alienation, less here, but more here, right? So we have already done that, so let's get into that. The debate of social organization of work can be understood at two levels. At the macro level, a broad distinction is made between traditional versus modern. Traditional versus modern, simple, complex, informal versus formal. Okay, informal versus formal. Please correct this. So these are the main differences you can see at the macro level. So traditional versus modern. So we can say in ancient and slave society it is traditional, in capitalist and industrial society it is modern. Similarly, in ancient and slave society it is simple, right? And in capitalist and industrial society it is complex. In here also, in ancient and slave society it is informal mostly. In capitalist it is formal. It is getting formalized. Although informal is there, but getting formalized. Okay, in this context, the pre-industrial society like slave and feudal societies are considered as traditional, simple and informal. Whereas industrial or capitalist or even post-industrial societies having modern, complex and formal organization of work. That is the first aspect. Secondly, social organization of work can be understood in terms of specific aspect of each society. So we have to take into consideration different aspects. For example, Marx discusses the technical and social aspect of work in slave society, feudal and capitalist society. Similarly, other thinkers like Weber, Durkheim, Veblen have commented on social organization of work in different society. So these are the various aspects that we need to discuss. Just remember this, you will be in a position to write this. So slave society, Feudal society, capitalist or industrial society. So you can now compare what is a major economic activity here, here, right? Then source of power, what is the type of stratification, means different classes, roles, mobility, alienation, social change. So I'll show you that. Major economic activity. So first, if you take slave society, we will discuss under one heading each, okay? So in slave society, hunting and gathering. Feudal society, it is settled agriculture. Capitalist or industrial society, it is complex production. Even agriculture is also organized in capitalist. So that is an economic activity. That is the first dimension that we need to discuss. In slave society, feudal society, capitalist or industrial society. So this is the economic activity. Then sources of power. In slave society, that means our ancient society, ancient mode of production. It is physical strength. Okay, master-slave relations. Masters are powerful, slaves are powerless. Feudal society, land is important, feudal lords are powerful, serfs are powerless. So you can write a lords and serfs relation. Third one, capitalist. So capital is important because the source of power is capital. Okay, if you have money, if you have capital, you will be powerful. So capitalist is powerful, worker is powerless. Now post-industrial society, you can see the trend that is knowledge is important. If you have good knowledge, then even the big capitalist also will hire you, okay, by giving huge salary. Even the salary might be more than the profit that the capitalist is getting. So that is the knowledge-based society. I hope this is clear. That is source of power. Then system of stratification, this will be easy. In slave society, masters and slaves, 2 strata. Feudal society, lords and serfs, 2 strata. Capitalist society, capitalist and worker, again 2 strata. Okay. Now the nature of roles. In feudal and slave society, roles are very simple. Industrial or capitalist society, the roles are complex. So that is again not a big deal. Social mobility, the chance, mobility means movement from one strata to other. So slave society, it was almost difficult to move from one strata to other. Feudal also, but in capitalist it is class based. So when we talk about class based, class is an open stratification. So this we have discussed in our chapter on stratification. So if class is open, so the chances of mobility is more in capitalist because more avenues are there. What are the avenues? Either education, okay, or different avenues we have discussed. So there is a high chance of social mobility in the capitalist system or industrial system. Degree of alienation. Alienation, if you remember, I have discussed like this. Primitive, we don't want to discuss primitive. This is slave society or ancient, this is feudal, and reaches at its peak in capitalism. We don't want to talk about socialism or communism here, but anyway we have covered this. So slave society it is less, feudal it is less, capitalist or industrial it is more. Degree of social change. Now when we talk about degree of social change within mode of production, okay, for example when we talk about ancient mode of production, within mode of production degree of social change means quantitative advancements, right? Quantitative advancements means what? It is all about the changes in tools and technologies, techniques, etc. So in slave society, that quantitative advancements is very less. In feudal society also it is very less. Capitalist and industrial society, it is more and fast. Okay, so that's about that particular answer. Apart from this, the conclusion, apart from this, other aspects like deviance, gender segregation, age segregation also differ in different societies. So if you want, you can talk about the gender aspect in different societies, okay, age related aspect in different societies, deviance, more deviance you can see in the industrial society. Okay, like for example, in pre-industrial society where the deviance is less. Why deviance is less? Because conformity to norms and values are so strong, and more communitarian and clear-cut age and gender segregation was there. Whereas industrial society and in the present day society, more deviance because highly individualistic, more individualism and age sex segregation is diffused. That means young or old, It doesn't matter, they both can do the same kind of occupation. Okay, earlier that was not necessarily the case. Similarly, both sexes are doing almost the same kind of occupations. So these differentiations or segregation actually diffused in the modern society, which was clear cut in the traditional society. So this also could be incorporated apart from the previous discussion. So that answer is well prepared, well structured. If you get a question from this, you will get only a short note, but it's a must attempt question. There's a question, social organization of work in different types. So specifically they will ask you slave society or capitalist society or feudal or industrial. Whatever it is well prepared, well structured, must attempt. Bring all these dimensions. All these dimensions has to be brought in.